Hello, children. How are you all? I hope you all must be doing good. So, today I'm going to cover the remaining part of the lesson how I taught my grandmother to read. So, before I move forward with the remaining part of the lesson, I just want to summarize whatever I included in the previous video. Okay, so this story is about a grandmother and a granddaughter. Grandmother Krishtaka is fond of reading a story, Kashi Yatre, which is published in a magazine, in a weekly magazine, Karmavira. Alright, and because grandmother is not able to read, her granddaughter used to read the story to her every week. Grandmother was very influenced by the protagonist of the story because she thought that the protagonist is similar kind of a character that she is. Okay, so once it happened that the girl was not at home. She went in a neighboring village for a marriage. And when she returned, she saw her grandmother in tears. Her grandmother was crying. And the girl was shocked to see her crying because she had never seen her grandmother crying, even in the most difficult situations. So she was eager to know what was the reason behind her grandmother crying. Okay, so we will now move forward with the story. So this little girl asked her grandmother, who was crying, Avva, is everything all right? I used to call her Avva, which means mother in the Kannada spoken in North Karnataka. So this little girl wanted to know the reason why her grandmother was crying. So उसने अपनी grandmother से पूछा, Avva, is everything all right? क्या सब कुछ ठीक है? And she called her Avva because नॉर्थ कर्नाटका में कन्नड़ा लैंग्वेज में माँ को अव्वा कहा जाता है. Alright? And that's why she called her grandmother as Avva. She nodded but did not reply. I did not understand and forgot about it. So her grandmother in reply just nodded her head. उन्होंने बस अपना सिर हिलाया. This little girl couldn't understand what her grandmother wanted to see and she just left and forgot about it. In the night after dinner, we were sleeping on the open terrace of the house. And in the night, when everybody was done with dinner and all, they went upstairs to their terrace of the house to sleep. Now it was a summer night and it was a full moon night. So घर के सब लोग ऊपर छत पे जाके गए सोने के लिए. And there Ava came and sat next to me. I asked her what is the matter. Now after the dinner, when everybody went on the terrace to sleep, uh, grandmother came and sat next to this little girl, and this little girl again asked her what is the matter. She asked her कि क्या reason है जिसकी वजह से आप इतना upset हो. When I was a little girl, I was a young girl, Ava said, I lost my mother. My father was a businessman and got married again. In those days, people never considered education essential for girls, so I never went to school. I got married very young and had children. So now Avva started telling her story to this little girl, and she said that when she was very young, she lost her mother. Her mother died. जब grandmother काफ़ी young थी, छोटी थी, तब उनकी mother की death हो गई, and her father remarried. Okay, and in those days, you also know that पुराने ज़माने में girl education को इतना importance नहीं दिया जाता था, and that's why her as in Avva, did not go to school. Okay, and she got married at a very young age and had children, and then she became a grandmother also, and her entire life got busy into her family and her grandchildren. I got married very young and had children. I became very busy. Later, I had grandchildren and also felt so much happiness in cooking and feeding all of you. At times, I used to regret not going to school, so I made sure that my children and grandchildren studied well. So, because her entire world became her फैमिली, उसका पूरा जो पूरा फैमिली था वो उसका लाइफ बन गया ग्रैंड मदर का. एंड because she was so happy and involved in a family, cooking for her grandchildren and children, and being with them, enjoying with them, but she had this regret in her heart. Regret मतलब एक जब पछतावा होता है आपको, रिग्रेट को हिंदी में हम पछतावा कहते हैं. So she had this regret of not going to school. She always wanted to go to school. And that's why she decided that her children and grandchildren will go to school and will study well because she could not study. Okay? I could not understand why my 62-year-old grandmother was telling me, a 12-year-old, the story of her life in the middle of the night. Now, because this girl was very young, she is just like 12 years old girl, and it is very difficult for her to understand the life and all these things whatever her grandmother was telling her, because she was going to school, she was enjoying her life like normal people. So she was not able to understand why her grandmother was sharing all those things, her life experiences with her. And just look at the age difference. Her grandmother is 62 years old woman, and she is just 12 years old, so it's like a huge generation gap. So she was a bit surprised that why is her grandmother sharing all her experience, all her life experience with her. But I knew I loved her immensely, and that there had to be some reason why she was talking to me. So कहीं ना कहीं इस बच्ची को ये पता था, because she has a lot of love for her grandmother, and vice versa, her grandmother also loves her a lot. So इसीलिए कुछ रीज़न है जिसकी वजह से उसकी ग्रैंडमदर उसके साथ ये सारी चीज़ें शेयर कर रही हैं बजाय किसी और के पास जाके शेयर करने के. I looked at her face. It was unhappy, and her eyes were filled with tears. And again, when this girl looked at her grandmother was very unhappy and sad, and her eyes were teary. उनकी आंखों में आंसू थे और वो बहुत दुखी थी. Avva, don't cry. What is the matter? Can I help you in any way? So this girl wanted to know if there is any way in which she could help her grandmother. So she just asked her not to cry and tell her the matter so that she can help her. मतलब किसी भी तरह से वो बस उनको help करना चाहती थी. Yes, I need your help. I have decided I want to learn the Kannada alphabet from tomorrow onwards. So, this whole incident of not being able to read a magazine had put a lot of, you know, had put a lot of um, on her, that she said that I want to learn this Kannada alphabet, I want to learn to read. वो इतनी दुखी हो गई थी इस पूरे इंसिडेंट से, बिकॉज वो एक मैगजीन नहीं पढ़ पा रही थी, एंड शी वॉज डिपेंडेंट ऑन हर ग्रैंड डॉटर to read that magazine for her. So she was so upset with that thing that she decided that I am going to learn Kannada alphabet and I am going to learn how to read. I will work very hard. I will keep the Saraswati Puja day during the Shera as the deadline. So she said that, I am going to be a very good student. मैं बहुत मेहनत करूंगी और मैं अपनी तरफ से दशहरा का जो सरस्वती पूजा का दिन होता है, आई एम गोइंग टू कीप दैट एज अ डेडलाइन एंड आई एम गोइंग टू लर्न दिस लैंग्वेज बाय दैट टाइम. सरस्वती पूजा के दिन तक I am going to learn how to read Kannada. It's my deadline. That day, I should be able to read a novel on my own. I want to be independent. So, grandmother said that, by that day, I'm going to read on my own and I'm going to be independent. I don't want to be dependent on anyone to read out a magazine for me. At least I should be so independent in that case that I should be able to read a magazine. मुझे किसी की ज़रूरत ही नहीं होनी चाहिए एक मैगज़ीन पढ़ने के लिए, राइट? इतना तो मैं कर ही सकती हूँ. I saw the determination on her face, yet I laughed at her. So, because this girl was very innocent, because she was just 12 years old and she couldn't understand the real emotions and that psychological factor behind her grandmother's that depressed behavior. So she could see कि वो कितनी determined थी ये language learn करने के लिए. बट फिर भी शी laughed at her. उसको हंसी आई अपनी दादी माँ के ऊपर. Ava, at this age of 62, you want the alphabet. All your hair is gray, your hands are wrinkled, you wear spectacles, and you work so much in the kitchen. Childishly, I made fun of the old lady, but she smiled. So this little girl said that Ava, आप 62 years old woman हो, and then you have gray hair, your hands are wrinkled, आपके हाथों पे झुर्रियाँ हैं, you wear spectacles and you work so much in the kitchen. Do you really have time to learn the alphabet now? Okay, at this age. And childishly, she made fun of that old lady. कभी अगर आपके grandmother या grandfather आपके पास आके बोलें कि okay, teach me ABCD, आप भी बोलोगे अरे आप ग्रैंड पा या ग्रैंड माँ आपको अब सीखना एबीसीडी, आपको एबीसीडी नहीं आता, आपको तो एबीसीडी आना चाहिए, आप तो कितने बड़े हो गए हो, है ना? अननोइंगली हम ये सारी चीजें बोलते हैं, राइट? एंड सिमिलरली दिस गर्ल ऑल्सो सेड द सेम थिंग टू हर grandmother, but she just smiled when she listened all these things from her granddaughter. She just smiled and didn't say anything. For a good cause, if you are determined, you can overcome any obstacle. I will work harder than anybody, but I will do it. For learning, there is no age bar. So, grandmother ने कहा कि अगर आप किसी अच्छी चीज़ के लिए, if you are determined, अगर आपने ठान लिया है, right, and if you want to achieve in your life, then there is nothing that can stop you. अगर आपने सोच लिया है कि आपको कुछ अचीव करना है लाइफ में, आप डिटरमाइंड हो, आप फोकस्ड हो और वो कोई अच्छी चीज़ है, तो कोई भी अड़चन आपके और आपके टारगेट के बीच में नहीं आ सकती. एंड शी सेड दैट आई एम गोइंग टू वर्क हार्डर, कुछ भी हो मैं बहुत मेहनत करूंगी एंड आई विल डू इट. एंड एनीवेज देयर इज नो एज बार फॉर लर्निंग. सीखने की कोई उम्र नहीं होती, कोई भी इंसान किसी भी एज में सीखना शुरू कर सकता है. The next day onwards, I started my tuition. Avva was a wonderful student. The amount of homework she did was amazing. She would read, repeat, write, and recite. I was her only teacher, and she was my first student. Little did I know then that one day I would become a teacher in computer science and teach hundreds of students. So next day से अव्वा का ट्यूशन स्टार्ट हो गया and Avva was a wonderful student. The amount of homework this little girl used to give to her students, she used to do all that work. She would read, repeat, write and recite. She used to do everything. And I was the only teacher for her and she was my first student. वो मेरी पहली student थी. Which means that this girl is saying that when she grew up, she became a teacher in computer science and she taught hundreds of students, right? So ये बच्ची जो 12 years old थी और ये पहली टीचर बनी अपनी दादी के लिए. आगे चल के she became a teacher in computer science and taught hundred of students. All right, so she pursued that profession of teaching, right, when she was a teacher at the age of 12 years old, and then she pursued that and became a teacher in future as well. Maybe because this whole incident inspired her a lot. That's why. The Dashera festival came as usual. So Dashera ka festival aa gaya, and secretly I bought Kashi Yatre, which had been published as a novel by that time. And this girl bought Kashi Yatre, that magazine, not the magazine, that book, which is now published as a novel, that story which is now published as a novel. So ये बच्ची जो है अपनी दादी के लिए वो काशी यात्रा जो वो स्टोरी हर मंथ पब्लिश होती थी वो पूरी स्टोरी अब एक नॉवल की तरह पब्लिश हुई. एंड शी ब्रॉट दैट बुक फॉर हर grandmother. My grandmother called me to the puja place and made me sit down on a stool. She gave me a gift of frock material. Then she did something unusual. She bent down and touched my feet. I was surprised and taken aback. Elders never touch the feet of youngsters. So ये बच्ची जब अपनी दादी के लिए अपनी स्टूडेंट के लिए वो नॉवल लेकर आई तो उसकी ग्रैंडमदर ने उसको बुलाया एंड शी आस्क्ड हर टू सिट ऑन अ स्टूल एट द पूजा प्लेस. शी गिफ्टेड हर अ फ्रॉक मटेरियल. सो दादी ने एक फ्रॉक मटेरियल उसको उस बच्ची को गिफ्ट किया. फिर उन्होंने कुछ अजीब सा किया. शी बेंट डाउन एंड टच्ड हर फीट एंड दिस गर्ल वाज शॉक्ड बिकॉज as you also know that elders never touch the feet of youngsters. You know, कभी भी बड़े बच्चों के पैर नहीं छूते हैं, बच्चे बड़ों के पैर छूते हैं. सो ये इस बच्ची ने जब देखा कि उसकी दादी उसके पैर छूने के लिए नीचे झुकी तो ये बच्ची बहुत शॉक में आई. मतलब उसको उसको यू नो सरप्राइजिंग लगा ये चीज़ कि वाई माई ग्रैंड मदर हु इज एल्डर टू मी शी इज टचिंग माई फीट. Elders don't do that usually. She said, I'm touching the feet of a teacher, not my grandmother, a granddaughter, a teacher who taught me so well, with so much affection that I can read any novel confidently in such a short time. Now I am independent. It is my duty to respect a teacher. So, grandmother ने कहा that, you know, I am not touching feet of my granddaughter. You are not my granddaughter at this time. You are my teacher. Because जितनी मेहनत और जितने प्यार से तुमने मुझे पढ़ना सिखाया है, you have made me so much confident that I could read any novel confidently now, and I am so happy कि मैंने इतने short period में पढ़ना सीख लिया. And now I'm independent and it is my duty to respect a teacher. So because तुम मेरी टीचर हो, तुमने मुझे पढ़ना सिखाया है, तुम्हारी वजह से आज मैं इतनी कॉन्फिडेंट हूँ that I can read this novel on my own. So I'm giving you that respect. I did return namaskara to her by touching her feet and gave my gift to my first student. So this little girl touched her feet back and did namaskara to give her respect as grandmother, and then she gave the gift that she bought for her grandmother, that novel Kashiyatre, to her first student. She opened it and read immediately the title Kashiyatre by Triveni and the publisher's name. I knew then that my student had passed with flying colors. सो जैसे ही इस बच्ची ने वो नॉवल वो गिफ्ट अपनी दादी को पकड़ाया उन्होंने तुरंत उसे खोला यू नो एंड देन शी रेड द टाइटल ऑफ द स्टोरी द टाइटल ऑफ द बुक काशी यात्रे बाय Triveni, the author of the book, and then the publisher's name. So when she read all those things on the cover of the book, that's when this girl understood that my grandmother has passed the exam. Whatever she taught to her grandmother, now she is able to get everything, and now she is an independent student. She doesn't need her granddaughter anymore in future to read out anything to her. So now grandmother has become independent, okay, so that she could read out any magazine, any book, any story by her own. So this was the lesson, how I taught my grandmother to read. I hope you have understood the lesson and there is no problem in understanding it. And but still, if you don't understand anything, if you have any kind of confusion, just let me know. I'll surely help you out. The only thing that I would want to say at the end of this lesson, that there are a few things that you should keep in mind, or you can say moral of the story, as first, that you should always respect your elders. You should always try to be friends with them. uh, by elders I want to say that I'm talking about grandparents, okay. आप उनके साथ फ्रेंडली रिलेशनशिप रखिए. इफ दे हैव एनी प्रॉब्लम एनीथिंग, you should be there to listen to them. Don't make fun of them, okay. Be a helping hand to them. Second, be respectful towards your teachers also. Teachers की भी आप respect कीजिए, because they are the ones who make you what are you going to be in the future. वो ही हैं जो आपको बनाते हैं. जो भी profession आप आगे चल के लेते हो, जो भी knowledge आपके पास रहता है, it is all because of your teachers. Please respect your parents also, because they are considered to be your first teacher. आपके पेरेंट्स आपके फर्स्ट टीचर होते हैं. सो टीचर टीचर होता है, चाहे वो घर में हो, चाहे वो स्कूल में हो. यू शुड ऑलवेज रिस्पेक्ट देम. ऑल राइट. सो that was it from my side. I'll see you all soon with another lesson. Okay. So for now, take care and goodbye.